Welcome to the Veriff 10th anniversary podcast series. This is the story of how an idea and a mission became a global leader, building trust for people and companies everywhere. My name is Anisah Osman Britton, and I'm going to be your host. You are the last episode, I believe.
Oh, wow, fancy.
So
No pressure,
fancy.
no pressure.
And the most exciting, let's be very serious.
Oh, I hope so. Had such a great time in Estonia meeting the Veriff team. And I honestly, verification is a really great story at Feeld. It's really important for us. So I'm so happy to do this. I really am.
Amazing. Let's kick it off and really start at the top. I would love to know who you are firstly, which is the most important, but also what is Feeld?
Yes, definitely. So my name is Lavina. I am a lead product manager at Feeld, right now leading the Express team, where we focus on setting members up for success from day one on the app. I oversee things like onboarding and profiling, in many ways, things that are really close to our USP and making sure that people are able to express themselves fully on the platform. So that's my day to day. Feeld is the dating app for the curious, and we define curious as people who are open-minded and interested in dating outside of heteronormative practices, let's say. We call ourselves the community of communities, and that's why you find a lot of people who may consider themselves a part of the kink community or part of the ethical non-monogamous community, the queer community, and all of them kind of come and amalgamate onto Feeld in this really beautiful way, where ultimately we just aim to create a more inclusive and honest space for people to meet, to connect online and also in person. And it was started 10 years ago. Feeld was actually started by Demo and Anna, who are partners. Anna is our current CEO. 10 years ago, Anna realized that she was bisexual and didn't know how to approach that with her relationship. So she talked to Demo and was quite scared as to how he would respond, but actually he took that wholeheartedly and said, we are in a partnership. We do not have to be apart for us to, give you this freedom to explore this new thing that you found for yourself that's really important for you to explore. So they were actually seeking out a community to be able to, be accepted with their new relationship dynamic and for Anna to explore her sexuality, and couldn't find one at the time. So Demo created Feeld for them to, find like-minded people to explore with and next to, and it's grown to what it is today, which I think is, really beautiful as a cornerstone story of Feeld and speaks a lot to, I think, who works there right now. And Anna continues to, like I said, she's the current CEO. She continues to shape Feeld with her vision and her experience and really helps us define where it's going.
No, I love it. I don't know if you know, but in my non-day-to-day work, I write about love and sex in the South Asian diaspora, and
I saw that. We need to talk about it. We do
at some point.
Love to hear it.
Yes, of course, which is why I was so excited to speak to you as well from both hats. I would love to understand a little bit more about the verification journey, because obviously, like you say, it's people's very personal stories. It's people maybe exploring for the first time or maybe the 100th time. So why was verification something that was coming up for you at Feeld?
Yeah, definitely. I think to take a step back, even from a macro view outside of Feeld, the dating industry as a whole is kind of plagued by this consistent problem of identity misrepresentation. And, that means that whether it's Feeld or any other dating app, one of the most persistent problems are bad actors pretending to be someone else that they aren't and trying to catfish people and run romance scams and things like this. So at Feeld, just like any other dating app, we also have had this. And over the years, one of our biggest feature requests has always been verification. Now, Feeld, also with a little bit more context, is self-funded. So we're not growing in the same way as many other dating apps that people may use are. And so we're quite a small team internally. In the past, we have tested verification, manually speaking. It was a manual process to get people to, use their profile photos, send in a photo, and recognize that, hey, I am the person I say I am on my profile. But that being said, it just wasn't something that was viable for us to manually support. And so over the years, we realized, this is still a really big need, and we really need to solve the verification problem of making sure people understand, hey, when I look at a profile, that is the person that they say they are. So that's why we were seeking out a more automated process. We were, meeting a lot of different vendors and figuring out what really works for us as a smaller, like kind of operational team. And Veriff actually was a standout choice for us because of the fact that they provide so much more support than just the tool of verification. We really needed someone to work with us as a partner, and not just hand over a tool, let's say. So Veriff, they provide a lot of support on the manual side, reviewing photos, etc. And that really is paying us back from an operational perspective a lot. So today, verification is able to run. We obviously still support from the field side, but it's a really seamless integration right now. And that's really, been very important for us to seek out. And verification itself is such a powerful tool for people to just see their community and understand, okay, I can trust who this person is. And I don't have to be, concerned that they are fake or not actually representative of their profile. Yeah, we've seen a really big dip in those feature requests since we launched verification, which is a great thing. That means that we really met this member need. And we've actually seen a really big rise in mandatory verification now. So people requesting this to be, mandatory for every single person who's on Feeld, which to us kind of just signals the fact that, okay, we're hitting the nail on the head and we understand that there's kind of an evolution to be had with this product as well.
I find that so fascinating and resonates very, very deeply with my personal experiences with dating apps. I feel like when I first started out, you weren't quite sure if someone was real. There was like the catfish photo, and you're like, oh, is this too good to be true? And then obviously now we've got like AI with, I mean, not only fake profiles, but fake chat as well. I wonder though, how do you ensure, like you say, people are asking for mandatory verification? How do you at this point in time get people to really change their like behavior to, I guess, verify themselves out of choice?
Yeah. No, it's a great question because Feeld as a community, we probably have members who operate with a higher level of discretion and privacy in relation to perhaps other communities, right? Let's say a mainstream dating community as kind of a foil. And with that, we think manual verification is something that is not necessarily off the table, but it's something that is quite tricky because it doesn't really speak to every single member that comes our way. Sometimes people can't have a photo of their face on their profile. Sometimes they don't even want a photo of their face as a private photo on their profile. And so, what we really seek to do is rather than, let's say, punish negative behavior in that sense, we're really trying to have people be motivated to verify. We want to reward people who actually do it and take positive action for the community. And we've really seen a lot of patterns that support this kind of thinking. Actually, what we found since launching verification in January is that when people enter a network that is more verified, so they see more verified photos, they themselves are more likely to get verified as well. And that, I think, is speaking to that rising tide. We want to make sure that you step into a community, you know kind of the norms that people are practicing in order to keep the whole community safe. And therefore, you too also are motivated to practice those norms in order to be accepted by that community. And I think that's more so the driving motivation that we want to do at Feeld, rather than say, let's, gate this entire experience for someone who's not verifying.
It's so funny you say that. My friends and I actually were using a new dating app that my friend was trying out, and we were just like swiping through profiles. And at some point, she was like, "Oh my God, everyone is verified but me. They're going to think I'm a catfish. I need to verify myself." So
Yeah,
it is
absolutely,
that
absolutely.
herd mentality, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think maybe people underestimate how much people want to meet the standards of the community in that way, especially when you really care about, hey, I want to connect. I want to be a profile that people are looking at and saying, you know what, stamp of approval, I want to see, I want to meet, etc. It really matters that people pick up on these sort of cues and also execute to that level and that standard. So for us at Field, yeah, it's really important for us to kind of build a profiling experience in which people say, I want to, have a really honest profile. I want to be verified. It really is that sort of mechanism that kind of is driving that sort of motivation. And yeah, like you said, your friend, you really notice these things. You pick them up because you're really emotionally in tune when you're in a space like that.
No, 100%. I wonder, does the data sort of reflect that as well? Are you finding, like, over this last year since you've implemented Veriff, that there are less fake accounts or maybe more people verifying? What are you seeing?
Yeah. So when we launched in January, and we've been seeing, an uptick in the amount of profiles that are verified across the community. So we are now at about 38% of our profiles are verified, which is really great, not even being a year after we've implemented verification with Veriff. And what we've seen with that really immediately is a lot of the support tickets around, hey, there's a lot of fake profiles. That dropped pretty much about a month after we started verifying, because people are now able to see verified profiles kind of coming across them in discovery. And so that was kind of the immediate pattern. And now we actually just had a report come out last month that our internal safety score that we use, it's called our TSAT score, our trust and safety score. Trust and safety is very important at Feeld, and so we keep very close tabs on being able to proxy how people feel on the platform about us from a safety perspective. And that increased by 25% since we launched verification. And so what we are seeing is people are perceiving less fake profiles. We are seeing that people feel safer on the platform already. And we're continuing to see people verify and more people verify in the community. So I think all in all, we've definitely seen a lot of success after we implemented verification in Jan.
I would love to chat a bit about the trust point, because I think Feeld is such an interesting use case when it comes to how you trust an application, how you trust an application with your data specifically. What does that mean for your users? For example, you mentioned that some people don't want to show even their face or a picture on their private profiles. So I guess in general, how do you think about trust from the Feeld perspective?
Yeah, also really great question. I think for us as Feeld, the first thing I want to say is that there is a responsibility to recognize if your platform is considered a safe haven for certain communities that may be quite vulnerable to harassment and to unsolicited negativity. And at Feeld, we really understand that is our responsibility for our membership. And we really have to understand not just how to prevent, let's say, the deterioration of these types of safe haven spaces, but also to further develop them. So we take a lot of considerable measures to make sure we kind of understand from a qualitative perspective, what do people think safety means for them? Trust and safety, it's, like I said, a cornerstone for us because of our community and because of our mission and our values, but that can be very ambiguous for people. So we have recently done a study as well to better understand what does trust and safety mean to our members from a practical level. And we found that trust really translates for members as a sense of agency and control. So what we want to do is how do we make sure that our members have that sense of agency and control when they're on Feeld? And therefore you kind of have a lead, right? So from a product perspective, I'm like, understood. What does control mean? Where do we need this control? And how do people want agency over their experience in this way that's meaningful? Verification is one way, right? I have agency to say, this is me on my profile. And we continuously develop features to kind of to meet that sort of need. I mentioned private photos. So we have public photos on Feeld. If you are a Majestic member, so our premium membership, if you have it, you are able to access also private photos. So they don't reveal your photo until you are connected with another person. We have incognito mode. No one's going to find you unless you interact with them first through a like. And we also have other protections like screenshot protection, which is for all our members on our platform. So in chat, you cannot screenshot images. And we allow people to kind of build their profile in a way that reflects whatever level of discretion they have to take. So we don't even force people to use their full name if they don't want to. And these are kind of important product decisions that really back up that sense of control and agency over, I want to be represented on Feeld in this exact way, and I want control over what information I share with whom and at what point. And we continue to build on all of these. My team recently launched hidden bios. So a part of your bio that is not going to be revealed until you like or ping or connect with somebody. And again, that level of control allows people to maybe share more information and be more honest with people they want to connect with without kind of revealing it to every single person, because sometimes folks don't have that luxury. And we just are really conscious of building that for our members. And I think that is what trust means. Trust is really difficult to build. It's been built over the years. And I think unless you continuously prioritize that type of use case, if you don't do that, members are going to notice. They're very keen. They're very perceptive. They use this every day. And so I find that type of continuous development to be maybe one of the biggest commitments we can make as a company when it comes to trust and safety.
I think this is one of the main reasons I wanted to speak to you, because I feel like it's just such an incredible use case of talking about data privacy, not just in your privacy policy, you also actually have it inbuilt into your product. And a question that I kind of was really curious about is, Does that change across maybe geographies, and does that change across, I guess, types of people that you are working with?
Yeah, less country to country, but imagine being in a very large city versus being in a really small town. And I
Mm,
think when you're in a large city, sometimes you might forget that, hey, maybe it's not as progressive, perhaps, for other people to be out and about, right? When you're in a small town with less than 1,000 people, and perhaps you're dating outside of heteronormative practices, maybe you don't want everyone in that town to know that. And that's okay. And these are kind of the use cases that people may forget if they don't apply to them specifically. But we really very much understand, since a lot of people on Feeld have this sort of need. And that's why it's an important use case for us. It's really not enough to build only for kind of the large city user. We really do have to remember that there are so many people who are in even more vulnerable, even more conscious communities in their physical world, where these levels of protection are a need, they're a necessity, they're not optional. And so those are the people that we really think about when we come up with ways to continuously improve on that level of control. So yeah, it does change community to community, I would say, more so on a network perspective than, let's say, a geographical perspective for us.
I feel like you can really see that in some of the messaging that comes from Field as well, in the marketing. It's very clear that that is so front and center of the product.
We have a lot of communities on Field that, again, are very vulnerable to harassment. And I think a lot of these people have lived their life like that. And when you do that, you become much more perceptive of things like control and perceptive of things like a privacy policy, even data protection and what that means. And I think our members tend to be more savvy probably than the average person because of that. So it is really important for us to kind of meet that standard for people who hold this probably much more close than, let's say, like an average person.
Yeah, completely. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about product and product integration with Veriff, because I would love to understand that process and how that works. How does that partnership work? Because you said at the beginning, it was not just like a third party given to you and then they're off. You said there was like an integration and a partnership. Could you talk us through how that played out?
Yeah, for sure. So the Veriff team is really hands-on, and I think that's something we really appreciated at the start. So the integration itself into Field, there's a few, I think, factors to consider. For us internally, not only integrating Veriff was very important, but also the fact of, well, how does verification really appear on the platform? So from the start, we really talked to the Veriff team to kind of give us a sense of the industry on, hey, we're going to do some competitive work on our side to understand how people really support verification today. What else do you see? So it was a very kind of like integrated connection and conversation from the start. And they were thought partners for us, right? We want to build it this way. We want to design it this way. What do you think? Back and forth, and kind of evolving the requirements really happened early on. So that was already a really great head start for us from a design perspective and from a product decisioning perspective. And of course, they were there for any sort of support that we needed for testing whilst we were actually going into the engineering of it and the building of it. They were actually such important partners when we were testing at the end. Of course, all of the support during integration and design was really impactful. But I think what the team really appreciated the most was their partnership during testing, because we have certain edge cases on Field. It's a dating platform, right? It's not KYC, it's not finance. It's a very different set of members, and so there are different use cases that maybe sit outside of the norm of fintech, let's say. And so when we were testing, we were able to really showcase, hey, this use case wasn't coming out of the box for Veriff. How can we fix that before we launch? And that was kind of the most important dialogue that we had, because we caught quite a lot of bit that was for dating specifically. And I think out the gate, it gave us a lot of confidence that we really kind of test this in a robust manner. And it worked out. When we launched, there was no rollbacks. There's really very little issue after we were able to kind of roll this out to all the cities across Field. So I would say that sort of really hands-on team dynamic was really paying back tenfold for us personally. And they continue to sit with us and keep an eye and monitor. Shout out to the team, Claudia and Gio and Karen. Really, really, every other week we still meet and kind of go over and make sure all the health checks are good. And verification, again, is really something that we really can rely on without extra support from the Field side. And we can focus on what we do best, which is kind of evolving this feature on the member side instead.
Yeah, you said something just at the beginning of that, which was it's not just about the verification, it's also how it comes up in app, and I guess that's maybe your role a little bit. What were you thinking about there from the product side?
Yeah. So like many dating platforms, of course, we have that sort of verified badge, right, on a profile. This is, I think, kind of a really considerable dating norm at this point. So that was important for us to ensure, hey, the average person has 2.5 dating apps on their phone. We're going to have to make sure there's like a sense of consistency where you would expect that to be. And then on Feeld, we made a few more maybe Feeld-esque decisions that you may not see on other platforms. From a design perspective, we didn't want to force people to verify their first profile. We take a really flexible approach when it comes to people's expression on the platform. And a lot of our conversation is around how do we make sure we're meeting the standard, but we're not boxing people into doing something really specific or making sure their very first photo is their face. Sometimes that's not what people want. And sometimes the first photo is a vibe and it's not a face. And we want to make sure that we aren't kind of overstepping into that territory. So because of that, we added a bit more badging and visual elements to the photo itself. We notably made a verified badge on the photo as well, which is animated. So people can't screenshot it and let's say Photoshop into the photo. It's an animated thing. You will see that it's animated for it to be real. And we also mark which photo is the verified photo so people can really easily find that. And yeah, for us, again, we allow people to verify multiple times. You know, you can only have one verified photo at a time. But if you were to change your photos, that's not a problem. You can re-verify without an issue. So we've really made some of these considered changes on the Feeld side for the user so that it just kind of better fit into the mold of how we know people really build their profile on Feeld.
That animated feature is so cool. I've never seen that before.
It was really great. It was something we really workshopped also with Veriff. Again, understanding that bad actors are really also very savvy. That their whole job is to make sure they are going to be able to scam someone on a dating app. And so we really got a lot of this information and we were like, okay, well, we can't have that be standalone. We need that to be something that moves. We need people to trust that. And I think not breaking that trust ever was something really important for us as we were really thinking through the design of it.
But it also sounds like it's quite on brand because it feels playful at the same time. It's that sort of that mix of playfulness whilst also keeping community safe, which I love. What have been some of the biggest lessons since launching with Veriff in January till now?
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson was a little bit of what I mentioned before. Really, this is the first really significant, visual push that we had on trust and safety to the platform. Verification is a whole new flow, and it's something that impacts every profile, right? And every profile that you see and discover. And so for us, the really big takeaway that we had was we can really continuously positively improve the way that this community is able to see each other, find each other, and understand and trust each other, right? And I think for that, that's driven a lot of new thinking in the product team, which is really exciting. And it really opened the gates for the commitment to verification, but also other safety related features. Our other big lesson for verification is it's kind of a tool that keeps on giving. Since we've launched in January, we've actually integrated it in other flows on the platform as well. So if, say, someone is accidentally blocked out of their account, they would be able to verify their face and say, hey, if I'm blocked because of the reasons that people think I'm fake, I'm not. And they're able to be unblocked and then subsequently use Feeld. Again, very small operational team. So to be able to automate some of these processes with verification has been really game-changing for our internal customer support team. And it really is, like I said, the gift that keeps on giving. And for us, I think next year we have verification also on our roadmap. And we will continue to kind of leverage this across different flows on our platform. And it really is something that has changed, the way that we really continue to keep the platform safe. And it's a really big learning for us overall.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting about Feeld and Veriff is you're both 10 years in to the journey. So it feels like you've seen quite a big change of how people are thinking about trust and thinking about data. And
yeah, it becomes really important to continue that dialogue with our members. So I think verification actually really kicked off a big dialogue already. It's us saying, we are committed to this and we are committed to make sure that, you have the tool set in front of you, right? But a lot of that tool set is also internal to people. How are you assessing a profile on Feeld? And for us, we want to make sure we're giving as much information as possible that, still keeps people private and safe, but gives them the ability to assess. But also, we need to really be clear about what that means. I think identity misrepresentation is the best way to say, that is the pain point that we are fighting with verification. But it doesn't mean that every person you meet is going to be a good match for you on the platform, right? So this could be me, right? My face could match my profile, but maybe I have different intentions than you. And you still have to kind of do that work to assess that as a member. And again, it's something that we can support with, but there's still a lot of that sort of discretion that we have to leave to our members. And I do think it's still our responsibility to kind of help educate people to understand this person is verified, but it doesn't mean that they also can't be a bad actor in a very different way. So I think, when we look at the future and we're looking at what we want to improve, we just launched a really big safety initiative on our website, a new safety hub, and you'll see us step into that educational side of things a lot more as well.
Do you think that some of that has come around because of AI and everything that we're seeing around chatbots, fake profiles, all of that good stuff?
For sure. I mean, AI makes it a lot easier for people to generate very realistic messages, right? Like you're no longer looking for the typo in the message. You have people who are able to access these really powerful tools and kind of use them, unfortunately, in a very negative way. But yeah, for us, we see AI proliferate across dating apps from the member side, but we obviously see dating apps also take on AI as well to kind of improve our ability to fight people who use AI for negative purposes. And for us at Feeld, we integrate AI actually primarily for trust and safety purposes. It's where we've identified it has the biggest impact for us right now. And so it's more so, let's say, quote unquote, under the hood, in which we leverage that to kind of combat what we see on an industry level.
Yeah, I think we're going to see some huge changes across sort of the industry over the next couple of years for sure.
It really, like I said, do not underestimate the people whose job it is to catfish and to romance scam. And so it's a growing situation. We have a dedicated team to trust and safety for this purpose. And I think that's going to be more and more important for companies to invest in moving forward. It's as much good as it can come from integrating AI in many different ways and really impactful and meaningful ways for people. There's going to be a flip side to that. And bad actors are always, again, one of the biggest problems in the dating industry continues to be identity misrepresentation. And that's not going to stop. It's only going to get more and more difficult with AI now being very accessible.
100%. And I think that is the challenge of some of the next big and brightest minds of our generation to solve.
For sure.
I feel like you're at sort of the cutting edge of the dating app scene where you've probably had the most innovation when it comes to apps. So 10 years in, what do you think we're going to be seeing next that comes from the scene of dating?
Where I see dating apps going right now is this movement to more focused and micro communities in many ways. And I think that's why Feeld may feel like we're on that cutting edge, right? We have a really specific focus for our members. We have a really strong point of view as to what that really can look like, right? We aren't doing DEI on the side. Like we really are committed and have started from making sure that we are creating a safe space for people who don't feel accepted in, let's say, the heteronormative world. Right. And I think through that, we've really seen and practiced this ability to really care about our core loyal members and really figure out ways to ensure that people who are curious about exploring, who are kind of on the first step of their journey, are able to have the support they need to figure out, is this right for you? What do you want to go to? Where do you want to explore? Who do you want to explore with? And I think having that sort of micro and niche focus really allows us to build an authentic platform for people, right? I can very clearly speak to the reason why we have certain features on Feeld, because these are the members that we take care of. And these are the members that we really care for and look at. And so I do think like in the next 10 years, we may see that sort of focus dial in a lot. Before it was scale, right? Dating apps want everyone on the dating app so that everyone can match with everybody. And that's really, really wonderful. But I think now, because we've seen that already, and dating app fatigue is very real, because it's really difficult to find people you're compatible with. It's difficult to align on intentions and all the other, things that you need to be compatible to consider someone to connect with. So yeah, I think I really imagine that sort of niche, micro focused community to be more. And furthermore, I think we kind of spoke about this, but in-person events and being able to authentically tie in how in real life works with a dating platform, I think is going to be more and more important moving forward. We've seen omni-channel like dropped in many different industries. And I think for dating, maybe there used to be a fear of people, leaving the app and going and meeting in person. For us at Feeld, we are not a destination mindset app. People have multiple connections. People use Feeld for many, many years. And so for us in real life is super important because it's just a part of our funnel. And it's just a part of the cycle that a lot of people really want and, look for and seek. They want to meet people in person. That's the whole point for many people on Feeld. And I do think that sort of further integration and that very intentional integration of in-person is also going to be something we're going to see with dating apps, kind of ironically. But I really do believe in that as well.